Hey y'all, welcome to Disgruntled Dad Gaming with me, the Disgruntled Dad. And today I'm gonna try my first foray into making an actual video, and so a little bit of background about why I was inspired to make this video. So I play Forza Motorsport, and I have a full-time job, and I don't play this game a ton. I don't have time to sit and find the exact perfect line and the exact perfect setup for every single car that I want to drive. I just want to rip a car around a track a few times and have fun. And primarily what I do is I play Rivals because it allows me to play against other people, or at least their time, without the annoying parts of multiplayer, like dudes that are going to run 10 seconds faster than me in the same exact car that I'm driving because they know the perfect line for the track and they hit it every single time. Or the more common thing is we get going, and by the end of the first corner I've been rear-ended 6 times, and now I'm spun out in the dirt because somebody didn't know how to brake without using the suggested line, which I use the suggested line too. I'm not knocking the suggested line. I'm just saying, like, when you're racing against other people, maybe you should pay attention to when it's time to start braking or what other people are doing. But enough about that. So while I've been playing Rivals and leveling up cars, what I've found is that there's a huge disparity between my performance index rating and some of the cars that I'm outrunning in terms of lap times on a lot of these tracks. So like today I was doing the Civic, the 97 Civic hatchback, and I had a performance index of 434, which puts me like down on the bottom end of the C class, and I was outrunning cars that were at performance index 500, which is the very top, and I was getting like a full second faster going around the track than these guys in a car that I've really not done a whole lot of work to, and so it kind of got me wondering. I was like, why are people with such a high performance index running such slow lap times? It can't just be that they're horrible drivers, because I'll be behind them, and when you get to that point in Rivals where it's like you're running against effectively the same person who's running effectively the same lap as you, it's like I'm running right behind him. This guy's on the line. He's doing a solid racing line. He's braking when he's supposed to and not spinning out or sliding, running clean laps, and I'm still like way lower than him in performance index, but keeping up. And so it got me thinking, and I was like, well, maybe people are just, to get their performance index up, slapping every engine mod that they can on their car to get their performance index near the top, but then they're not actually, like, they're running 400 horsepower with stock tires and a stock transmission and stock suspension, and that's probably why I'm able to pull this off. So I'm gonna do this little video where I compare lap times in this car, the 97 Volvo, which is actually a very fun car to drive and can be very fast. I have a couple different tunes that I'll share near the end that put you in the top 10 to 20% worldwide on pretty much every track. But it's an off-meta car, and not a lot of people are going to look at that and say, man, that thing could really rip. And this is just going to kind of walk you through my process of upgrading cars within constraints of performance indexes, because that's really what it is. You want to get the most performance out of any given vehicle while keeping it within a certain performance index to be able to enter whatever event that you're trying to enter. So here we go. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the same track and run one lap on the track with the car in a bunch of different configurations, illustrating the differences that you get from each performance mod without really upgrading the motor at all. That way you can see how important a lot of these suspension mods are. I'm gonna show you some of the tuning. This is not a tuning video per se. If this video gets good traction, I might do a deeper dive onto some of the tuning aspects too. I am a mechanic in real life, so I'm very familiar with a lot of the stuff that the technical side of it, of what all those things mean. So the first thing I'm going to do, when you first buy a car and you're at level 1, you have like 2 or 3, I think you have 300 car points to play with. So what I always do, that I do the sport intake and I do the street exhaust. So that takes my performance up. I think this one, it goes up like negligible. You know, let's see, 254 horsepower. Yeah, that's 6 horsepower from the exhaust and 8 horsepower from the intake. So it takes you up 14 horsepower. So 14 horsepower above stock. And then I am going to immediately change out the wheels. One, because this car, I run these wheels on it and they just look way better. They don't affect your performance all that much. But yeah, so effectively stocked. This is going to be our baseline. Just to see what the lap time is when we haven't done any major changes to the vehicle. Alright, let's go in free play, circuit. Let's see, a nice short track. Let's see. Lime Rock is pretty short. The full circuit is fine. Yep, we don't want any rain. Just one lap. No drivatars, just me. Alright. So let's see how it does. What kind of time can we put up? And I'm going to write these times down so that I can compare the initial time to the final time. One thing I didn't mention is see this PSI? 41 pounds of air pressure in your tires is pretty sweet if you're trying to make your tires last 30,000 miles. You know. But for a race, you want lower air pressure in your tires because that's going to get more of the tire rubber touching the road, which equates to better traction and better acceleration most of the time. So less air pressure is good. If you look at the Indy cars that the game has, they start out at like 19 pounds of pressure in the tires. I start out at 25 and then I dial it in from there. Do I need to go down a little bit? Do I maybe need to go up a little bit? So that's kind of where I just start at from a stock, and you can do that on stock. So alright, let's let the shaggin' wagon rip. This inline 5 turbocharged monster. Go get some groceries, boys. Yeah, this thing's, you know, stock tires. Even though it's a front-wheel drive car, the rear end keeps wanting to slide out, you know, which is wild. It's not got very good traction at all. Everything is real loosey-goosey right now too. The steering's loose. You know, it's hard to keep on that corner right there. So let's see what we get in terms of that first lap time. Alright, so that was, I think, a minute 12. A minute 12:79, the total time. I'll just record the total time for consistency's sake. So that was 1 minute, 14 seconds. 0.034. So that's the baseline that we're comparing against. Cool. Alright, let's go back to the shop. And so when I'm looking at building a car to run in a certain performance class, or just take it from stock to something that's going to put up better lap times, there's 3 main things that I upgrade before I really start digging into the motor. The first thing is always your tires. Tires is how the car touches the road. They're going to give you the best performance increase for your buck every time. As soon as you get 1,700 car points, put it into race tires. Take every other mod off if you have to. Put it into race tires. The performance difference is astounding. After that, I go to the transmission because your shift times matter, And the quicker you get your shift times down on these road courses, the faster your lap time overall is going to be, and the car is going to handle a lot better because you'll be able to be in the right gear faster. And then the last of the big three is your springs, because that opens up a bunch of tuning options for you, and makes it so that your car responds, is a lot more responsive turning wise. And when I do springs, typically I have a couple extra 100 points left over, so I'll do the sway bars as well at the same time. And then after that, those are the big three that I think every car needs to have before you branch out into anything else. After that, I do downforce and then weight reduction. And I do those 5 things before I even really dig into getting the motor. And I'll show you how I can get this thing from, low D class up to the very top of C class with almost no engine mods. I think when I did this earlier to test it out, I added a total of 18 horsepower to the car, and I was running significantly faster times. So let's just go straight here, performance, go over to your tires. Don't mess with the widths yet, just go to the compound, race. Just putting a race compound on brought me up it brought me 59 performance points, performance index points. And then once you change your tires out, you have to redo your pressures, but then they should stay. Alright, so that's it. All I did was I put racing tires on it. Let's take it back, same course, run it again. Back down to 1. Yep, I would like to accept those options. So I already know that the car is going to be a lot more grippy. I'm going to be able to carry a lot more speed through the corners, but the difference is pretty substantial. For tire compound, when I'm running rivals, because the tire wear is really not that big of a factor, I'll do the soft compound. When I'm qualifying in multiplayer, I'll run it with the soft compound, but usually when I'm doing a multiplayer race, depending on the length, if it's a short race, yeah, I'll leave it soft. If it's a longer race, I'll put it at medium so that I get a few more laps out of those tires before I have to pit. And then obviously a big buff or a big bonus for getting the race tires is that you also get the wet tires, which make a huge difference when it's raining. So, alright, grocery getter, same engine performance, just change the tires. I can already feel, one, I know I'm taking this corner a lot faster. I'm more comfortable taking it fast because I know that I'm not going to lose traction. But also the car is a lot more stable, a little bit more responsive, just overall much better to drive. Yeah, look at that. I shaved 4 seconds off of my lap time just by putting tires on the car. This one is 1:10, 1 minute, 10 seconds, 0.2 of a second. So yeah, almost 4 seconds different time from just the tires. Incredible. Yep, got it. Alright, and so now the next thing I do every time, drivetrain. hit that transmission, take it straight up to race. Say you had a couple extra performance points laying around, you're like, what am I going to do with these couple? I got like 50 extra performance points. Toss you a clutch on there. Do stuff with the transmission. Make the transmission good. Now you're tapped out on your performance points for the car levels, so it's time to take it back. Now what I love about the transmission one is it allows you to change the gearing. So what I usually do is I set it at a 410. I like 410 gears. And then I adjust from there, you know. And you can do the same thing with all the different gears throughout the transmission. But that's really only necessary if you have like a particularly offensive gear where you downshift from like, you know, second to, or you downshift from like third to second, and the car over revs every time. Well, you can mess with those gear ratios to make it so that's a little bit less painful. But in general, you don't have to mess with each individual gear. You get a lot more performance changes for changes in gear ratios. Obviously, a higher gear ratio, your car is going to accelerate a lot faster, but have a lower top speed. A lower gear ratio, your car has a higher top end, doesn't accelerate nearly as quickly. And realistically, a high gear ratio is your friend because it's a road course, primarily road course game. I'm not going to get anywhere near 150 miles an hour, so who cares if I lose a couple miles an hour on a change in my gear ratio. But if it, you know, it lowers my top end by 10 miles per hour, but it drops my 0 to 60 time by almost a full second, like, worth it. Alright. Look at that. The shift is so much crisper, smoother. I got to a whole extra gear before I even made it to that corner, you know? Because I'm not, one, the gear ratios are different, but two, I'm not wasting time on those shifts. They're almost instantaneous, you know, like way better shifting. And that might actually hurt my lap time. See if I put up a better lap time this time or not, because I did that bad shift there. Had to do a tactical retreat on that gear. Nope. Still ran it faster. Not much faster. Still, it shaved it. Actually, it shaved almost a full second off just by messing with the transmission. 1:09, 66 hundredths of a second. Alright, so those are my big three right there. Or, I'm sorry, not quite. Those are the first two. The third one is your springs. Because I like to do the springs next because it already handles so much better than stock. And now you're going to get to be able to really tweak the suspension, get a car that handles a lot different. So go over here, get these springs, take it to race. You betcha. Again, we go into our tuning. So for camber, camber, I always start out at -2 on the front and -1.5 on the rear. Dial in from there based on how I want the car to go. Toe, I always do 0.1 or 0.2 in on the front. That makes the front wheels in, just the front of the front wheels are in just a little bit. That helps the car go straight when your hands are off the wheel. The car will tend to go straight if you have a toe in. The car sitting in your driveway right now probably almost certainly has a little bit of negative toe on the front wheels for that exact reason. This really helps out with rear wheel drive cars with a lot of power too, because you know the tail end's going to try and fishtail when you really get on the gas, but if you have a stronger toe, it's going to wear out the tires faster. It's going to impact your speed a little tiny bit, but it's also going to keep pushing that car straight as opposed to letting it fishtail wildly. I always put my caster maximum. Springs. Stiffen it up just a little bit. Typically you want a stiffer suspension on a race car. I slam this thing almost to the ground. I always keep my rear just a little bit higher than my front. Stiffen it up, stiffen it up. The only time you really need to soften a suspension is if you're doing something like drifting, or you're on a course where there's a whole lot of bumps. Oval courses, you typically want to have a little bit softer front suspension, or softer suspension overall. And or if you're going to use, there's big curbs on the track. For your roll center height offset, I always put it down at -0.4, and once again adjust from there. And for 99.9% of people, you're not going to have to mess with this at all. This has to do with how your car squats when you take off and how it dives and pitches forward when you brake. Most of the time they're set good to go from the factory. You don't really have to mess with differential on most cars unless you have an all-wheel drive car. Save your performance points and put it more where you need it if you're tight on performance points. If you don't, if you're just retuning a level 50 car, then go ahead and buy the race differential. But once again, for most cars, I don't mess with the differential. You don't really have to start messing with when the differential locks up on acceleration, deceleration, until you get into the higher performance classes where that really does matter. Like, you don't want, when you take your foot off the throttle, the car to oversteer just because of the way the differential locks up. So, but for a lot of these cars, at the lower performance levels, you really don't have to mess with that. You're not going to notice a huge difference in the way the car handles. Alright, so this one's just the springs. Didn't mess that corner up this time. Didn't have to immediately shift again. I think I might have messed that one up. There we go. Look at that. Even faster, just on springs. Maybe I'm just getting good at the course, but 107.855. That, just messing with the springs, being able to do all that, that took a full second and a half off the lap time almost. Our last one was 109 and 66 hundredths. This one's 107 and 8 tenths. That is a significant change from a 500 point thing that really didn't mess with your performance index at all. That's why I love doing the springs, because it doesn't change your performance index so much. But man, once you dive in and do just a little bit of quick tuning, you saw how quick I did on that tuning. I really didn't spend a lot of time agonizing over those numbers. I just, bop, 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 yeah, this is probably good. And I shaved over a second off my lap time. Ah, damn it, I hit continue. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to continue. I don't want to do Yas Marina right now. I want to go put some body kits on this thing and show how that downforce can really help you. Oh, this would be fun though. It's in the rain. Oh well.
Yas Marina South Circuit provides tons of passing opportunities due to so many technical turns packed into such a short distance. If the competition gives you a gap, go for the pass.
Alright, so next up, I'm going to slap the aero stuff on there. Don't be afraid, the rear wing, yeah, look at that, it lowered my speed from 3.1 to 2.5, that's okay. That's the difference of like 10 miles an hour, and once again, we're barely hitting 100 miles an hour, so you're not going to notice the difference in your top end. but you will notice the difference in how fast the car goes. Alright, so I just go through and get everything. Let's say you have a couple extra performance points left over. Go ahead and upgrade that to the race clutch, and let's put the anti-roll bars on. Sweet. So the big one here, messing with the downforce. Once again, into the tuning menu we go. This one's easy. All the way, so let's see, it's 147.4 is your max speed right now. Crank them both all the way up to cornering. You drop down by 3 miles per hour. Once again, who cares? Don't let the red numbers scare you. You're not going to see the difference in how fast this car is on the straights on like 80% of the courses in the game. And even on the ones where you do see a small, you top out just a little bit sooner, like, oh, I could have gotten 3 more miles per hour out of it. Well, you're going to be making up so much time in the corners. Those 3 miles per hour are going to amount to absolutely no difference in how your car performs overall. Yeah. So here we go. The grocery getter's slowly turning into a respectable track car, you know? What you're really going to feel when you get that is that you're going to be able to carry a lot more speed through the corners, and it start accelerating out of those corners sooner, right? So you'll hit the apex of the turn, you'll be able to actually start accelerating on a lot of turns before you even hit the apex, because there's enough downforce being generated that you can just push the gas down and you're not going to lose traction. You're not going to go sliding off into the dirt or the wall, you know. The sooner you start accelerating out of a corner, the sooner you're out of that corner and you can get straight and get some speed again. So it's all, the name of the game is how can I carry more speed through these corners, because that's what's going to get me better lap times and get me faster overall times without wrecking. Once again, so that one, 106. That one actually I ran just a tiny bit slower than last time. That's a little weird. It felt a lot crisper, I'll tell you that for sure. In my steering wheel force feedback wheel, it felt a lot crisper. I feel like if I did a couple more laps, I would probably be more comfortable pushing it. But you know, it would look real stupid on a tutorial video that I'm doing live uncut for me to just go sailing off into the dirt. So maybe I'm driving a little bit more conservatively than when I'm trying to set a new lap record or something like that. But that one I came back 1/10 of a second slower after putting those on. I don't know. We'll chalk it up to me driving like grandma going to get groceries, because that's the kind of car I'm in. Alright, so for my last performance mod that I absolutely must do before I even consider anything else, weight reduction. So we're getting near the top of the C class, so now we're not just going to go crank it all the way to the top, right? We want to stay within the confines of C. Alright, so there we go. Let's see, I bet I can put some good brakes on here. I sure can. I can put race brakes on for the final bit. And then chassis reinforcement, sure. These make your car more rigid, make it a lot better. Let's see. Nope, that'll put me too high. That'll actually worsen my performance. Let's see. It makes my handling go up though. Let's try it. And then, so now I've exhausted a lot of options. Let's see, I'm still not going to mess with the differential. That's a waste of points on this car right now. Driveline though, I can make it lighter. Got the aerodynamics, I got all that. So now that I've exhausted all these other options to keep me under C class, now I will consider going back and putting some engine parts on it. So let's see. Nope, that'll put me over. That won't. I think all these will probably put me over into B class. Intercooler, yep. Oil, Yep, that will. Flywheel, there we go. Get the flywheel lock up differently. Hell yeah. 500. All right, there we go. Top of the heap. 500 C-Class. And just for argument's sake, I'm pretty sure I've only added maybe, I think it's 18 horsepower. Let's see, can I see the horsepower from this menu? Yeah, I've added 18 horsepower to the car. It started out at 240 horsepower, at 258 horsepower. So, minimal tuning, you know, not a ton of tuning. And let's see what she can do now that power to weight. That's why I love weight reduction as opposed to engine mods, because once again, bang for your buck. Weight reduction is going to give you a lot more bang for your buck in terms of number of upgrade points you spend versus the performance you actually get out of it, because making, power to weight ratio is really what it's all about. Who cares if the car's got 800 horsepower if it weighs 5,000 pounds like your standard Dodge Charger Hellcat? Like, yeah, it's got a ridiculous amount of horsepower, but traction is an issue. I know, because I own a Dodge Daytona in real life, and that one is not supercharged, and it's an absolute beast to try to keep straight. But also, you're hauling around 5,000 pounds, whereas if you have a car that weighs 2,600 pounds with half the horsepower, it's a lot easier. It's a non-linear scale. You don't need nearly as much horsepower to move lower weights. So let's see what we can do with a car that is maxed out, top of C-Class, with 18 more horsepower than what it came off the factory floor with. That I was able to keep it in 5th gear through that whole corner. That's a big difference right there. That's a big difference. It's about a whole nother second shaved off the lap time. 106.99. That's another second shaved off. So that is pretty impressive. And these are all standing starts too. That lap time would go down like another 5 seconds on each one of these steps if I did another lap around and I did a rolling start where I hit that start finish line at 100 plus. So these lap times would drop even faster. This was just for comparison's sake. So overall, without touching the motor hardly, 18 more horsepower than stock. We started out at 1 minute 14 seconds, and we're down to, we'll call it 1 minute and 7 seconds. We shaved 7 seconds off of our lap time just doing all the handling mods and not really touching the motor. Now that I've got all these handling mods on here and I've got them tuned the way I like, you really don't have to mess with them from here until you start getting into like the S classes and you start changing it up. Excuse me. So this thing's going to be dominant in pretty much every on pretty much every course in this class. It's going to at least have a shot. It's going to come down to the driver more than it's going to be like, well, that dude's just got a car that's better. And I keep all my tunes. Any tune that I make, I share publicly. So for this car specifically, I've shared all these tunes that I have for it, and I have it all the way from C class up to S class, and I'm working on maxing out, maxing out the car. Like, what is the maximum performance potential of this vehicle? It's probably not going to be able to make it into the R class, but just kind of as a bad meme, it's a station wagon, and you know, I've got it running. You know, I got a B class tune for it, which is really fun and pretty competitive in the multiplayer B class. The S class tune is rowdy. I changed it to all-wheel drive for that. The A class is my favorite. That's where I leave it, unless I'm trying to get into a specific event. I really enjoy this one because it's the stock motor, still stock motor, inline 5, and all I did was the only thing I changed on it was the drive. It's now an all-wheel drive instead of front-wheel drive. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned something. You can see my username up in the corner there if you want to look for my tunes. I have a lot of cars that are not the meta car that I can run in the top 10 to 20% of most tracks in the game. So, you know, if you like the video and you know you want to see more, let me know. I'm more than willing to do some deep dives into some of the tuning and explain it in kind of some common English as opposed to the technical terms. Yeah, if I'm totally off base and I'm crazy and you think I'm just the biggest idiot in the world, let me know in the comments too. Either way, views is views. It's hard out there for a pimp, so take it easy, folks.